Hari
Hari
Om.
Om.
Good evening, everyone. Let us begin our day today with prayers.
समस्त जन कल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम् ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहैः ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः हरिः ॐ श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ॐ
We are seeing now on our path to realization that Gurudev has explained to us the four paths which are available for man. And these belong to the heart, to the head, an equal balance of heart and head. And the fourth, for those who are not completely developed in the matters of heart or head, are known as Hatha Yoga. So let us continue our reading further and finish this chapter with clear understanding of where or which path we all can follow.
So we ended yesterday with the bhakti or the heart kind of people, and whereby if somebody with the intellectual bent or the mind or the man with the head is forced, how he can go wrong. We read further, to such a man who is a head person, to cater to such men, nowhere in the world can we find a satisfactory philosophy or even a sufficiently subtle method except in the Vedanta. Aldous Huxley represents in large measures the above type of people. Ashley, would you speak of this gentleman?
Yeah. Aldous Huxley, in the year 1953, he became very, very famous. He was a writer and an author of many books. Now, what was the topic of his books? He was now a man who fell into this category which Gurudev is explaining to us, where he was a man of head and a researcher, a author, a writer of books, and he tried to find the realization of consciousness through religion. And of course he couldn't, because that was not his personality type. So he experimented with drugs which are popularly known as LSD. And these drugs of course created such effects on the human being, and he had this whole research made on that. So you can see that instead of taking the correct path, which was of course not known to them, and it is known in Vedanta how to take that path, he experimented in this way, and that whole following of his which was there, which had to take the psychedelic drugs in order to understand or feel the consciousness which was there. In India also we have heard of similar examples which were Osho-like people who did not really understand what religion was or what consciousness was, or were misled
Misunderstood.
in a sense, and I'm not very sure if they are still doing it or not, but we know of this example which goes into such wrong paths.
And therefore, Hinduism says what? Vedanta recognizes so freely the potentialities of the human intellect that the children of modern scientific age stand aghast at their own incapacity to live up to its full destiny and to make use of their entire birthright by completely exerting their individual intellect in the pursuit of seeking the good and the perfect. Those who cry out aloud that religion is empty and hollow, that it is a bundle of empty superstitious beliefs, that it is an insult, or that it insults our intellect assertion, are those who have been not been initiated into the sacred freedom which Vedanta liberally gives to the intelligent. Through pure reason, one climbs the path of Vedanta, and it ultimately leads us to discriminate between the permanent and the ephemeral, between the real and the unreal, between the false and the true in ourselves, and make us rediscover ourselves to be the true, the real, and the permanent. Godhood is the goal of Vedanta, and in it lies the glory of Hinduism. This too is a path of those who seek reality through knowledge or jnana. This is a very important statement what Gurudev is trying to point out here. Knowledge does not only mean what they call as an argumentative Indian, just to take something up so that you can debate and argue and argue and argue. No, no, no. There are 4 paths to lead to the truth. Jnana Yoga is also for those who want to know the truth, those who want to follow the truth and become one with the truth.
So such kind of people, then Vedanta provides them with enough literature in order to study and logically, scientifically understand the truth.
Correct. We move ahead. To serve men of mixed psychology who seesaw between the cooing of their heart and the call of their intellect, the karma or the path of action has been advised. So now from the second, now we are moving to the third, where the heart and head are equally balanced. Here the individual, during his softer moments of emotional
Desperation.
beg your pardon. Here the individual, during his softer moments of emotional desperation, walks the path of devotion, while during his intellectual phase, he runs out into the field of activity to serve society as a manifestation of the Lord of his heart. A selfless worker is not a psychological wreck who has split his potentialities on the rock of idle anxieties over the plans of action, or in futile hopes of expected fruits or imagined results. No, he is not. To him, the very field of activity is an expression of Lord's kindness, and his only demand in life is that he may be a true instrument of the Lord in fulfilling his plans among his creation. The very feeling of his God, the very feeling of his blessing flowing through the devotee is sufficient reward, a thrilling divine experience for him, and a selfless worker refuses to demand anything more from his Lord. This satisfies both the changing tides of his head and heart in the individual belonging to this composite type of personality. So here actually we have to understand why there are so many institutes, so many temples, because this particular type of people are maximum. How? Because you see, so many people want to do bhakti, they want to go and sing bhajans and want to attend satsangs, but that does not only satisfy them. So they do what? In turn, they come out and they do service. In our country, seva is a very, very common word and commonly used activity.
True.
Therefore, the karma siddhanta has 2 aspects. One, bhakti, and the second, seva. Now we come to the last aspect. Those who belong to the last group, who have comparatively maladjusted or ill-formed head and heart, would have been the despair of every prophet, and no religion in the world could prescribe for them a treatment and a path by which they could complete their biological evolution and walk the path of the spirit towards self redemption. Once again, Gurudev is getting our mind to one aspect again and again, whether it be the path of devotion, whether it be the path of knowledge, whether it be the path of karma or hatha. The ultimate goal remains the same:
Of course.
self realization and self redemption. Reading ahead. The acute intelligence, the highly evolved scientific knowledge of living creatures and their structure, the divinely sweet temperament of love and charity, the godly urge to serve even the dullest, these whipped the godmen in the Vedic period to devise a subtle method of physical exercise. You see, all the above three methods were something to do beyond the body, with mind, with intellect, with feelings, with emotions. But here, the rishis found out that there is a group of people where they need physical exertion, they need physical control. For them, a brilliant exercise form was devised through which they could reach the final goal. This is a system of conscious self-control by which such an individual can slowly be awakened first to the full stature of man and thereafter be guided out of the labyrinth of his own misunderstandings to the sunny fields of self-discovery and infinite perfections. So, here the meaning of labyrinth is that in principle labyrinth means complicated structures or narrow paths.
Which are difficult to find your way back. Yes.
Difficult, complicated, confusing, that kind. The technique prescribed is called Hatha Yoga, which comprises the special exercises which popularly go by the names of asana and pranayama. But Rashri, we know that Hatha Yoga has 8 limbs, isn't it?
Yes, we will come back.
We'll come back to that. We will come. These are only 2 limbs Gurudev has indicated, but when we finish our chapter, we'll come back and explain the whole 8 limbs. With open eyes and wide awakened intelligence, these rishis, from the peak of their experienced perfection, observed man living in society, and in their X-ray vision, they could read how the mind and intellect of every individual react to the infinite variety of circumstances in life. In the 4 paths described above, the attempt is really to gain a greater control over mind. Any practitioner in any one of the paths in the spiritual scheme will certainly come to have a greater mastery over his own mind, and the mastery over the mind ends in a greater and intense integration of his personality. The more one gets integrated in mind, the more dynamic becomes one's intellect. Thus, purified, the mind and intellect equipment gains a greater efficiency and a greater power of flight. Making use of such a pair of wings, the individual soars high into the brighter realms of spiritual perfection. Om. It is so magnificent, the clarity, the crystallization of Gurudev's thoughts are so magnificent, Rashri, that just by reading it maybe once or twice, somebody can clearly understand the cornerstones on what Hinduism is standing.
These 4 paths which have been described to us, the Bhakti Yoga, the first one. Now, each of these paths does require complete self-effort. Similarly, even in the Bhakti Yoga, which one connects to most easily, In that yuga also we find such marvelous examples like Mirabai and Sant Kabir. Being in the state of Maharashtra, Mumbai right now, I can also think of Sant Tukaram, who always, excuse me, always said Vitthala, Vitthala, Vitthala. So he has total bhakti towards his God, and he attained his realization only simply by chanting the name of Lord. In everything that he did, everything he saw, he only and only saw his Vitthala, his God. Same thing with Mirabai, we know that she just saw her Krishna Bhagwan in everything, everywhere. Sant Kabir's Dohas also we know. In everything he described the glory of God. So you see, this is the path of bhakti which one can take or one is inclined to.
It's a natural attraction towards one of these four.
In the path of Gyan, we have seen that another saint of Maharashtra, Sant Jnaneshwar, he wrote Jnaneshwari as a child, as a very, very young boy. And he did that, the translation of all the Vedas from Sanskrit to Marathi, which was the local languages. And that was a period when wrongly the Brahmins would not allow the poorer or the common man to study the Shastras because they insisted that it has to be learnt in Sanskrit.
And only a Brahmin boy born can learn any of Vedas, or for that matter Bhagavad Gita, the Shruti or Smriti.
So of course this was rejected, and over time, as we have seen, which is the glory of Hinduism, that something which is wrong is rejected and something which is right is adopted, so that the knowledge is carried forward. So these were the saints of Jnana Marga, our own Gurudev. He walked the path of Jnana Marga also. And his own Guru, Swami Maharaj Tapovanji, who was considered one of the stalwarts of Vedanta and Upanishads and all the scriptural books. Students from far and different places on earth and especially of India used to come for his guidance and his knowledge which was there. In the path of karma, which was where the heart and the head equally rules, that a person through the softness of his emotions wants to do seva, and then he actually turns his emotions into activity and does it to save mankind. And such a great example as Swami Vivekananda, which was there. What a better example can we give than that? That such a wonderful person who was there and created such great ashrams through his bhakti for his guru also, Swami Ramakrishna Maharaj, Bhagwan Ramakrishna Maharaj. So these are so many great
examples of our time, of these different paths taken by so many great human beings, and they took with them hundreds and thousands of people who transmigrated this samsara.
Jointly. So this clearly has to be understood that even in the mark of Gyan, Vedanta or Hindu philosophy had that availability that choose this or that, not be forced to take any one which is not actually conducive for you or you don't have the inclination towards. And finally, the Hatha Yoga mark, which was, you will see that it has repeatedly been said that of for the people who are duller in the head and the duller of the heart. Why is that? Because after having given these examples in the other three marks, you will realize how much dynamism and force is required in order to be getting the final or ultimate goal of realization. Most of the people do not have that drive to reach the goal by themselves. They need the pushing and sort of getting them into that activity which will take them forward in this path.
At the same time, imagine this in your mind. There is no form of anybody. There is a blank, complete sheet, and somebody would tell you, now follow this path of blank sheet where you have to just follow and become self-realized. It is very, very difficult. I won't say it is impossible, but it is very, very difficult. Many of us always look at a person or somebody we look up to and then try to follow their path. In all the knowledges of the world, what we call as the ephemeral knowledge, we have an idol, an ideal to follow, isn't it? In the same way, Hatha Yoga becomes that way. It starts from the basic, what we have.
The 8
From,
limbs.
yeah, what we have, and from what we have to what we want to be. So what we have we can see. Therefore, Hatha Yoga is divided into 8 limbs. It is called Ashtanga, Ashtanga Yoga. May I? So it starts with Yama and Niyama. Yama are the universal laws that one should know. Even before getting into physical exercise, your mind has to be readjusted. Second, Niyama, the individual rules and regulations that you should put to yourself. You cannot just do whatever you want. In exercise, you have to follow discipline. So self-discipline. The first one, Yama, universal law. Niyama, the individual law. And then comes the exercising aspect of the body, asana. Then comes the physiological pranayama.
We have seen what is the importance of pranas.
Yes. So, and pranas are subtler than the physical body. Annamaya kosh, pranamaya kosh. Next comes then pratyahar. Pratyahar is generally explained as the outer and the inner junction, a part between. Then comes dharana, where you are taught how to focus on different parts of your body, of your breathing, and many other things are explained. Then comes dhyana, whereby you become focused. And finally comes the samadhi, which is the ultimate transmigration state. So it is said in this way, Yama Niyama Asana Pranayama Pratyahara Dharana Dhyana Samadhaya Ashtava Angani.
So we see how slowly, through the very basic, what to do and what not to do, what is right, what is wrong, from there then to the physical, start controlling your own body, your own breath, and then slowly start coming into the realm of the internal, the mind, and from the mind, how to steady the mind, how to keep the mind focused, and from there to transcend into the samadhi state where you are completely absorbed in the truth, in the consciousness. So slowly you are taken into that path, and most of us require that guidance and that pushing.
And the today's world is a factual truth of it, isn't it?
Absolutely.
The way Hatha Yoga spread into world, it's like no one's business.
Yes.
Nothing, no other knowledge has spread so fast and wide like Hatha Yoga. So with this, we come to our end of this beautiful
Chapter number 25, and tomorrow onwards we begin chapter number 26, which is so exceedingly interesting and wonderful to know, and with great enthusiasm we will see you there tomorrow. And let us finish this session with prayer.
Certainly. Asito ma satgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityormamrutam gamaya. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shantihi Shantihi Shantihi. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namah. Harihi Om. Hari Om.
Hari Om, everyone.
Hari Om.